session before lunch, but I'm assuming we will give you some food for thought, and then you can have the real food as well. We'll begin by just doing quick introduction of the panel. I would request all panelists to introduce themselves in the order that we are seated. Quick introduction from my side. I'll be the moderator for this panel. My name is Vishal Mehta. I am a partner with BCG and I lead BCG's energy practice in India.
Hi, I'm Susan Hughes. I'm the president of Emerson Asia, which includes India. Emerson is an automation solutions provider. We talk about our work as instrumentation ground to cloud. And in India, we have a huge presence, so very happy to be here today.
Hi, I'm Vivek Sharma, and I head the energy strategy for the Adani Group.
Very good afternoon to all of you. I'm Rajeev Gupta, Director Projects, Engineers India Limited. Engineers India Limited is basically a primary consultant in oil and gas sector, and as part of the energy transition, which is on the anvil and has already started, we are already providing solutions, for green hydrogen, green ammonia, biofuels. In fact, we are building one of the world's first biorefinery. And that's it from our side, and we have solutions for the complete transition as such. That's it.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Deepak. I head Schneider Electric in India. We are now 60 years present in the country with almost 37,000 people, and our primary objective is to decarbonize the areas we work with our energy management and automation solutions. To find areas where we can build something sustainable for tomorrow. I'm very happy and very pleased to be here with all the panelists today.
Hello everyone, I'm Gautam Reddy. I'm responsible for the green hydrogen business at Greenco. Very happy to be here. Thank you.
So we have I would say a mixed panel representing both manufacturers as well as energy suppliers, and Mr. Gupta represents the engineering or the projects part of the value chain. My first question is to you, Susan. Just make this real for us. I mean, we heard a lot of these big words on energy transition, trilemma, dilemma, all of these jargon. But really, on the ground, what's really changing, and what opportunities do you see, to real do business right now?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And as I think about some of the current developments and trends, I believe it begins always with energy efficiency, if you start there. Because ultimately, a typical industrial plant, 30 to 50% of their operating costs are related to energy that they have to use to power the industrial plant. And so any opportunities to reduce that has long been an objective. This isn't new. But what is new is the opportunity to use advanced instrumentation, advanced process control, coupled with a lot more analytics to be able to optimize these different processes. So let me give you an example. In combustion's a key one, of course. The optimization of combustion, huge energy source, as well as, sometimes in a refinery, we see 60% carbon emissions from fired heaters, as an example. Being able to get that ratio of air to fuel optimized is critically important, and using analytics to do that in addition to instrumentation has really been able to save what we see a lot of our companies some significant money. The second one I want to talk about is, and again, this is very specific, this isn't pie in the sky, but it's heat exchangers. Heat exchangers and the fouling that typically happens in a plant. The traditional method of looking at heat exchangers has been just regular maintenance, scheduled maintenance during turnarounds. The opportunity to pair wireless instrumentation with cloud analytics to get more of real-time data in a real-time way can truly prevent some of these issues and provide predictive maintenance. So we see that as another key area to improve on that front. I won't go through all the other ones, but the other key thing to think about is just in general leak detection, whether it's steam, whether it's compressed air gas, how across a site, an industrial, all of that requires energy. How to reduce those leaks. There's lots of sensors and acoustics to hear and listen to those leaks, but the trick is being able to set that up in a way that you can optimize not just for one asset, but see across the entire site and really reduce the energy associated with fugitive emissions or some of these leaks that are occurring. So I do see that as a true enabler. That's the first piece. That's all of energy efficiency and what we can do today and has been done. Coupling instrumentation, flow valves with analytics is a really great thing. The second thing that I would mention, though, is the decentralization of energy generation. In some places, it's just beginning, but I think this is a tremendous opportunity. And as you think about, I mean, just recently we heard, I think it was a day ago, the new solar policy plan here. Yeah. The opportunity for consumers to also be producers on the power grid and add renewables in the process is a fantastic way to keep decarbonizing and really change that landscape. But in order to do that, these grids need to be significantly more sophisticated in the overall management of it. The intermittent use of renewable powers, the difference in the inertia from AC to DC is a very different mechanism. And so having the right digitization and solutions to manage that grid of renewables is a great way to see some of that happen. So those are my two key areas that I see today that we're working on, that energy efficiency aspect, as well as the decentralization work that's happening of the grid.
Yeah. Susan, just one follow-up question on that. If you can just touch upon on what has changed recently in this.
Yeah.
You know, both from ability to do these things,
yeah,
and also from a customer sensitivity to wanting to do these things.
Well, I think, let me start actually with a customer sensitivity. Like I mentioned, when you change the equation of profit or return on investment, that's always a win, always has been. That's not new. I think the sensitivity around sustainability and using these efficiencies coupled with sustainability efforts, everybody can get behind. Because sometimes we struggle on the sustainability efforts to ask what the return is. But if you look at that efficiency aspect of the equation and see that return, it's a no-brainer. And so I do see the pressure that a lot of producers and companies face on that sustainability, in addition to the fantastic incentive of saving in the bottom line, is a great way. From a technology perspective, what I believe is changing significantly truly is taking these individual assets, these individual measurements, being able to aggregate it and look at the data in a holistic way where people aren't waiting on just routine maintenance, having to walk out to the asset to measure it, thinking that there's leaks but not sure where they are, instead having a dashboard where the leaks are happening and choosing the right assets about where you would look at that. And that I think enables a significant improvement. In fact, what we have seen, some of the Emerson data shows that putting all that together can save an industrial plant up to even 5% of their energy costs, which is a huge number if you think about their total operating budget. So that's how I would answer that. That analytics piece is really key.
I think, come to you, Deepak, I think pose the same question. What opportunities do you see in real opportunities? And also the second one, you know, what has changed recently? I think if you can touch upon that, I'll just give you a little bit of my own anecdotal experience. You know, when we work on operations work with clients, and we used to earlier look at energy efficiency projects, right? I mean, clients will always have a hurdle rate on return on investment. I have actually seen the hurdle rates go down because now there is a pseudo sustainability or carbon price in a way that is being put. I mean, it's not a whole lot, but like if projects were 16%, 12% was the cutoff, then it's come down to 10%, saying, okay, you know, it still makes sense, right? So if you can just touch upon that also a little. Are you seeing customers changing the way they buy some of these?
So thank you, Vishal. And well, I think Susan gave a very strong, good examples. I would start first 2-3 comments before directly going to the answer. I think this is not about only any more board discussions. It's not only about ROI. If you live in a city like I live, like Gurgaon, if you don't have air to breathe, I don't know what will you do with the money where you will leave in banks for your kids and grandkids, because there will be no planet to breathe, right? So the challenge is not anymore about, do I get money back? I'm not saying these are not important points, but I think the problem is bigger. The problem is all those challenges we see from the climate change perspective, And these are all numbers which all of you know. I'm just repeating why is it important that if you don't achieve the decarbonizing or eliminating the carbon emissions by 2050 numbers or 2030, 35 commitments, and we don't bring the curve back, we would have problems just to survive, right? It's only a matter of years. Probably I won't, but I know my kids, my younger one suffers, right? And I'm sure the other generations will not suffer. So this is the real problem. I understand the ROI part. Then it comes, the problem is the countries like India, where the energy sector is going to double. The electricity demand is going to go by 6-8 times in the next few years. All of us in these rooms are excited to build more. That means we're going to consume even more. So while you have already a problem of what we have and the way we use, we're going to even use more or double than this. So the problem will only become even more severe if we don't act. I think that's something which we all know. Now coming to the practicality, is it possible to solve? The answer is yes. Are there customers solving it? The answer is yes. And yes, there are government and regulators who are putting it mandate to do it, but I would not only go that way. I think now the consciousness of the people to drive use cases is realistic. And there are enough examples. And I go to the smallest person in the ecosystem. Let's take a farmer. We don't believe he would be using a technology to, right? There were days when farmers used to bring water from a diesel engine, normal dual starter, normal pump. Now if you go to the rural parts of the country, you will find they have also decarbonized. There is a solar panel. The solar panel is run through a square wave or a DC inverter, which is directly controlling the pump. And then, there is no emission anymore, right? So if it has happened to that level, now let's come to the people like us in the room who are running the biggest electro-intensive industries in the market. Now, again, take real examples. The real solution is if we all are conscious, and of course the ROI challenge is reducing, I mean, it's at least making more sense. We have use cases now established in the industry that the more you digitize and the more you electrify, the possibilities and the hope to decarbonize the ecosystem is visible. And you can deliver those use cases, right? We have real examples in the country. I mean, I don't have the NDAs to name them, but there are multiple end users in this country who are already going that route of electrifying the infrastructure. And then the efficiencies or the benefits are anywhere in the tune of up to 70% achievements in savings, right? So this is for real. This is not anymore a boardroom discussion or a PowerPoint discussion. This is here. I mean, I have an approval at least to talk about one case out of India. It's in the Abu Dhabi oil company. I mean, we have put the entire process into and through their visual of the whole process. And the savings are in the tune of few $100 million, right? So the point I want to make is that this is possible, this is real, this is here, only way to deliver, and everybody in the ecosystem is participating to make it happen. I would not leave this for a boardroom to say if the board says, the government says, the regulator says we should do it. I think everybody in this room has a role to participate in the eco story, because it's not for just the society or the not for the company, it's more for the society. And somehow the coming together of a full ecosystem is where these technologies will help. And again, happy to talk more. Our own factories, we have 30 factories in the country, 5 of them are smart. One of them was recognized as by World Economic Forum as Lighthouse in Davos. This year it got recognized as Sustainable Lighthouse. It's all connected, digital, and the efficiencies just by making them smart through electric and connectivity has given us wastages down by 40%, carbon emissions are down by 70%, electricity consumptions are down more than 30%. So all these real cases are available to showcase that if we all decide to jump into the story, it's possible and we should do it and we can do it. Did I answer your question, Vishal, in a very long answer, or I did not?
No, you did, but if I may, if your NDA allows, can you pick one specific use case which 5 years back people would not do and now are willing to do?
So let's take a process, and let's take an oil and gas process, or let's take any cement process, let's take a mineral process. 5 years ago, we would get leads which was primarily about saying, can you power that process? You know, as a company, our job was to plug them. Plug them means just give me the energy, and rest we manage through a normal process of running. Now when we go to those design boards, when you're writing the specs, the whole story is, how do I write a project? Again, I can't take the name. By making it the efficiency of the system so that it's the carbon emissions are less, the CO are less, and we actually have now tools available that by just using those artificial intelligence tools or simulators or twins, digital twins, we can simulate that if I design this process, and we do some projects with Engineers India also, that you can define that by writing a new process which is again more electrified, more digital, we can save so many million tons of CO2s by the process, right? So just replacing basic things, replacing gas by electricity, running consumption at every level of your ecosystem, which is more sensorizing or IoTs enable processes, and then bringing the layer of digitization, which is more on the softwares through our brand called Aveva, where we bring those analyticals to artificial intelligence and run the process in a way that can really deliver you. So these are real examples. Again, sorry, I don't have the names allowed to talk, but happy to show you these real cases in our own setup, the ones who would be interested.
Sure. So I'm tempted now, since you named Mr. Gupta, I was anyways going to go to him. You know, I don't know whether you can share, but let's say you have $100 worth of, you know, projects where you're providing engineering services. How much of those are growth and how much of those are like transition or efficiency improvement oriented? That's one. And second, just give us some examples on, you know, where customers, like you serve pretty much the entire oil and gas chemicals industry, right? So where customers are coming and asking for more, I would say efficiency or decarbonization kind of work.
True. You see, first of all, let me be very clear that, you see, as such, if you see the roadmap, the future roadmap, it has to be green. There is no question about that. And as part of project executions, the percentages of projects, you know, which are coming up, the technologies, you know, which are being used, you know, in the upcoming projects, you know, are definitely more focused towards renewables, sustainable, and providing energy efficient schemes and provisions to the end user. You ask for a percentage, you know, I would say that, you know, whatever is under execution now also, there are means and ways available, and the tendency is to bring in renewability into that to the extent possible. You know, that's the roadmap. But in addition to that, you know, to be very honest with you, you know, there are other issues also which needs to be answered in this journey towards renewables or greener alternatives. Some of these, you know, which are very apparent, and I'm sure, you know, my fellow panelists on boards who are from the manufacturing side must be facing these issues in their, you know, roadmap towards greener alternatives, is availability of raw materials. If I talk about EV, lithium is an issue. If I talk about green hydrogen, electrolyzers, iridium is an issue. If I talk about wind energy, again we have specific raw materials, you know, which availability of that is a concern. Second, the infrastructure. The infrastructure also has to cope up with the transition, you know, which is planned in the coming years. For example, hydrogen. We are talking about green hydrogen. You know, we should have plan for the dispensing stations. We should have plans for the hydrogen pipelines. We talk about even for the grids, like, you know, the capability of grids to handle, you know, renewable energy. Third is availability of skilled manpower. You know, that's a very important aspect. The kind of technologies, the kind of automation, the kind of AI, the kind of IoT tools, which we are planning to be implemented as part of that energy efficiency needs skilled manpower. And that is where, the corporates have to build a roadmap to train the manpower, to augment the skilled manpower, and maybe, cross functionality also will help us in optimizing our resources. Another important point is the manufacturing industry, which is we have a very resilient and flexible manufacturing industry in India. But at the same time, the capability and capacity assessment, the enhancement of that is again a very key area, which probably the manufacturers needs to address to take this forward actually.
So if I may just press on that point a little, I'll take just one use case, and as I said, if you can't share, let me know. So we are one of those rare countries where our refinery capacity is expanding, our fertilizer capacity is expanding, right? Which is not true across the world. Most across the world, it's so. If you take any one use case, if I take, let's say, an SMR versus electrolysis, right? Would you say that people are actually considering or debating between the two, or pretty much all the expansions are going to be still SMRs?
No. I'll be very honest on that. Let us be very clear. It's going to be a mix and match. It's not going to work like a switch. Like from tomorrow, the SMR is not there. That's not like to happen. It's not going to happen. And definitely in a country like India, which is guzzling for energy, which is demanding energy, and we are all aware that at present, India is one of the few growing economies in the world. The manufacturing sector over here, with a GDP of, at present with a GDP of 13 to 15%, is planned to be enhanced to something like 22 to 25%, to meet the exponential demand which is going to come. And that is imperative simply because, we are on roadmap to be a 5 trillion economy in the next couple of years. In addition, the vision of Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji to make India a developed nation by 2047 or a Viksit Bharat is again a driving force, which will envelop all sorts of energy. It is going to be a mix and match. And these technologies, right now we may say that this is on in infancy stage. That was the same story with the solar also when it came in. I remember very categorically the price of something like 18 rupees per unit, which now is something like 2 rupees per unit. That's what is going to happen, but it's going to take some time. By the time, we can say that, it is a switch, but all kind of energies, whether it is oil and gas, whether it is solar, whether it is biofuels, whether it is green hydrogen, is required for this transition journey. It has to be a mix and match.
I think it's a good cue point for Gautam. If I may ask you now the reverse side of the story, and I don't want you to restrict only to green hydrogen. I know that's one of the main areas, but I mean, I'm assuming you are offering like a suite of decarbonization solutions, whether it is renewable or storage or green hydrogen. What's your experience been from the customer side on propensity to take that up, and what stops them? I mean, we heard three views. I mean, we heard obviously customer viewpoint changing, ROI hurdles dropping, technology helping, making it cheaper. But your experience, because
thanks, Deepak. Sorry, Vishal, thanks. I think like Deepak mentioned, there's definitely in the last 1.5 years, the conversation has gone from board level strategizing to real projects. There is no doubt about it, and I have an NDA where I can discuss a couple of them so that I can satisfy your question. Our endeavor to supply ArcelorMittal with round-the-clock green power or Hindalco. That's hardcore manufacturing. These industries previously would of course be heavily driven by cost of energy, which is a significant input cost into their cost of production. They were all ideally, they wanted to be near pithead coal, but then a lot of them, because of the quality of coal, moved to imported coal, right? And they are all under stress now to, of course, they have to keep their cost of production low, especially for the Indian market, for which they will continue using our coal, which is a naturally available source for us, considering our energy requirements. But they also have export markets to cater to, right, where the pressure on them is actually economical and not a policy or a strategic pressure, right? So, so we are, for example, supplying around 200 megawatts round-the-clock power to ArcelorMittal in their ArcelorMittal Nippon Steel from one of the projects we'll be commissioning close to end of this year. Same with Hindalco. So that's, I think I quote these examples because something real is actually happening while we speak, right? These companies guzzle gigawatts of power. It's a small beginning. It's few percentage points, right? Because of course there's a reason. It's not because they don't want to do. There's a learning phase everyone wants to go through. Though we call it, though we can simplistically put it as renewable energy being supplied, because of the nature of renewable energy, there's a lot of digitization that has to happen for this to be applicable to a process plant, right? There are challenges like this where companies like Susan's and Deepak's are working on in the back end, providing digital solutions. But real solutions are happening. I'm very glad that it's happening because of both decarbonization initiatives, but also because of a commercial requirement, which eventually should be the driver for this to happen, right? So, So to answer the first part of your question, I think that's we have real examples of change happening in the country, and you will see a lot of it. Now, of course, I think here we normally not talk about it, but I would really like to appreciate. We all criticize government often for not doing things, but we also have to appreciate them. I think Government of India has done astoundingly well in creating this enabling policy framework to make energy transition happen. So one side is the PLI schemes that they have introduced that are, I would say, were probably a breakneck speed. I mean, every date they committed to, 1 month here and there, they made it happen. So that was fantastic. Okay, we can't do IRA like US, dole out cash, we don't have that money. But we always say this, the ISTS waiver they did in India, people don't talk enough about it. That's probably the greatest policy support for the electrification that any country in the world has done anywhere, right? So things are moving on that front as well. So I'm very optimistic overall that this is a change that is irreversible and will only gain pace and momentum.
Gautam, the renewable part honestly is purely commercial. I mean, if you see today for anyone to look at coal or any other source with a depreciating currency in India versus a 25-year hedge cost of power, I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? I mean, if you got it.
I agree, but I think hydrogen and derivatives are going to be commercial. It's happening. It's happening because in Europe, policy change is real now. You talk to anyone in Europe, CBAM is real. From 2026 January, every year for the next decade after that, 10%, in increments of 10%, every good that comes into Europe will be charged. So by 2030, 50% of carbon intensity will be charged for carbon tax, right? So that will definitely create a market for green hydrogen and derivatives, and then it will become again commercial, just like renewable has become commercial, right? But again, renewable has also become commercial today because going back 10 years ago, like Rajeev was just saying, you know, there was $14 per rupees power, but government introduced RPOs, right? So renewable purchase obligations were a very good policy support to make it happen. And then the industry, the economics fixes itself, right? So it will happen, Vishal.
Would you think that it's an opportunity for Indian manufacturers from an export point of view? Because I would believe India would be one of the cheapest power costs if you compare benchmark green to green. I mean, of course, not on gas basis or coal basis, but.
So, when we started on this journey 3 years ago now, actually, India was nowhere on the map. People even used to talk of North Africa with all its uncertainties about, politics and security. There was Chile, there was Australia. Today, if you go to any global conference or any global discussion, India is right there along with US. US primarily because of IRA, and then there's India and there's China again. You cannot wish away China because they do things at scale. Now, I think this is the greatest opportunity for India because from a strategic aspect, no one wants an exposure to China for supplying green, to support green manufacturing because of everything that has happened with Russian gas and everything else, right? So politically, we're in a great situation as well, right? I think this is the moment for us to get onto this the green manufacturing bandwagon, and I'm very optimistic that the stars are also aligned for us. The government support is aligned for us. I think this will be a phenomenal growth.
So let me come back to that global opportunity. I want to discuss with the other panelists also. But before that, Vivek, your group has made big commitments from a manufacturing perspective also, right? Whether it is solar modules, whether it is, I heard, wind turbines as well. I don't know if there are others as well, but you kind of make big bets on new energy equipment, right? What's the thesis behind that? I mean, what's the thought process there?
So I think in our mind it's clear that supply chain will be crucial for energy transition, and I think the co-panelists just touched upon the fact that whether it is critical mineral or for that matter the key supply requirement to meet energy transition. Just to give few examples of where we are in this space, you're right that we are into solar manufacturing. We already are 4 gigawatt cell to module. Will be 10 gigawatt and will be manufacturing wafer here. Second, on the wind side, we have this 5 gigawatt machine which is up and live now. There are other energy transition component on the manufacturing side which see as an opportunity. One of them is copper. So we are going to, our copper plant is going to get commissioned this September. And as we move along, we'll see what all other critical resources which are essential to meet the energy transition demand, we are able to manufacture or have a backward integration towards that. Even for that matter, hydrogen, we are creating the entire ecosystem which includes electrolyzer and of course this control over supply chain in terms of solar, wind machines itself will help to create that required ecosystem. Why we are doing this? One, of course, there is a domestic market which we know we need to do 500 gigawatt of RE, and there is a clear view not only in India but outside India also that every country will like to have a make in India kind of thing, and other countries are also thinking whether it is IRA. The entire thought process was that they could have a manufacturing on their own, and there is what you call a China plus story. That's for the domestic market. Even just to add to your first question, and there's the the narrative comes. What is real is what Gautam also pointed out, right? That CBM is real. You can't sell. We have cement. You can't sell your cement or other products. We are exporting a lot of products to Europe. We know there's going to be a premium tax. That's real. The advantage, the flip side is, I think that we should all as an Indian should accept this, that we are going to be double in few years in terms of our growth, which means we will have incremental new production, incremental new demand. Doing a new green or energy transition for an incremental thing is much more easier than doing something which is already in place. So I think that's a big advantage India has. So if tomorrow I have to say, for example, I'll give you an example. We are setting up a copper plant. From day one, we have a plan to have a least emission reduction plant. It has a smelter, it has a energy guzzler, but we have a captive RE. We are planning to give as much RTC to them, power. Similarly, for the steel new plants, I know there is some pilot, they will start talking about doing DRA from the day one. So I do see India as an opportunity because we have a fresh new incremental demand and we can plan the day one that we have to do it well. For example, let's talk of buildings also. All our new buildings, we are thinking through a energy efficient code and building codes. Now think of Europe or say France. They can't do it because they have to retrofit and do all the reconstruction. So that's very complicated and difficult. I agree there will be disadvantage to the existing one, but there also one has to work towards it. So for that perspective, it's a very good opportunity in India, whether it is ports in our case, whether it is cement, whether it is petchem tomorrow, all have a ESG plan in place to decarbonize as much as possible. Ports, in fact, in next 2 years will be decarbonized. Everything will be green there. Third, I think the real thing which gives an opportunity, which is a bigger, larger point, is of course the energy security. And I'll dovetail with now food security also. Because 80% of our fertilizer need, we import that in the form of ammonia. Of course, there is a good ammonia market outside India, which we should commercially in cash, but domestic market itself, 80% of our imports for ammonia, whether through in the form of LNG or direct ammonia, is something a market to look at. From a food security perspective also, I think government is also keen that we will look at if you can domestically produce green ammonia to substitute that bit. Yeah, the question what is challenge or what is, I would say, also real is that right now the cost or the scale, cost is high and we have not received that scale to get the green hydrogen especially into a play. There is a lot of talk happening, but we are looking for a scale and the cost curves to come down. As other panelists mentioned, end of the day, government is there to give you support initially. If it is really have to write the solar story, we need to have a very strong, visible scale to offer to the investors to work towards it so that hydrogen cost really comes down to a level where we don't need to ask subsidy support. Maybe some of the countries like Europe will pay a premium for green versus grey hydrogen clearly, or grey ammonia versus green ammonia. So commercially it will make sense to also bring down the cost, but chicken and egg, we need to get some scale visibility clear.
I think you and Gautam both mentioned the word IRA. I just wanted to double click and do that to Deepak, you and Susan. We were doing a little bit of benchmarking on sales price of certain electrical goods in India versus US, right? I was shocked, for example, as basic stuff as transformer is 2x. Actually, solar modules were like 1.8x, right? Is this opportunity real, and what does this mean from a manufacturing footprint perspective? I mean, is there an opportunity to make more in India for global markets? Right? I mean, we've been hearing about manufacturing share of GDP increase for a long time, but is this the time, especially given the price disparity in supply chains right now?
What's your question, Vishal?
I mean, is this real? Do you see this also, the arbitrage between like making here and exporting to a larger extent than it was earlier?
Okay. So, I'm sure some of us, I lived in the US for a few years, right?
Yeah.
The price of McDonald's Happy Meal there and Happy Meal here is not the same.
Yeah.
But we still go to McDonald's, kids are crazy and it's all full, right? So I would say the disparity is there, but again, it's the whole local ecosystem. The same way that the products you talk about, the products we sell in the country, the pricing, the selling price in India is different. I mean, sometimes India is seen as the most competitive market when it comes to our selling prices, which only brings for me good news. I mean, as a head of the country, that means I have more challenge to optimize my cost and still serve the customers, right? And when you optimize the cost with the global quality, because you don't say in India, if I sell a product which is just enough quality, you have to still manage the same quality standards, because the plants we have or the process we have, these all processes are global processes, right? Be it a Adani project or a Reliance project or a Greenco project. I mean, they are all globally established players. So the
Yeah.
quality delivery is the same. So what I'm saying, the equation is you have to develop the same product, you have the same quality and the needs, and then your cost pressure. So that only helps us to be actually more competitive in the world market. Today, at least in my company, we export to around 30 plus countries from our continent. So I think it's an opportunity. It can only do better, and with all the, again we come back to the government for complaints, but I think this is a good thing. The support we get from the governments to actually innovate more for the global, and that's a big machine for Schneider in the country. We have almost 6,000 digital engineers just doing development for the group globally. This is only encouraging us to how to use the strength of India in an economical structure for the group. So for me, it's real, it's an advantage. And I lived in China too. There were days when China used to be the global factory. Beyond the political challenges we have, I think from a cost optimization, India is almost there now when what China used to produce. May not be in every sectors, but in the sectors I come from, we are already competitive to them as an alternative. So it's not just a political, I think we are getting the scale, we're getting the knowledge, we're getting the exposure, we're getting the learning, we're getting the innovation, we're getting everything. So I think it's for real, it's no more a theoretical PowerPoint story. Did I answer your question, Vishal?
Yeah, you did. I mean, if I
I think
may,
your question was on more on IRA. So, what's happening on ground, our understanding is that because of the IRA, you have seen the price and the cost gone up for the land, permits. So your installation cost of solar, which was, it's almost got doubled there.
yeah.
And the IRA in fact has become inflationary in terms of developing there, and then they get back the subsidy. That's one part to it, but more importantly, I am not sure US as a market, especially for green hydrogen ammonia, is there for us, because they are quite, if you look at their split of the regions also, they are quite focused on blue hydrogen, which they have abundant. So rightly so, every region or every country will go with their strengths. So my sense is their preference or their offtake for blue hydrogen will be much more than the green hydrogen, and they have advantage of having gas at a lower price also. So the overall conversion will not be that difficult. So my sense is the blue will prevail in US than green. And maybe I would be happy to be wrong with somebody.
Susan, your view. Let me just add a couple of data points just to make this sharper. Is see, there every now and then there is a discontinuity in global capital cycles, right? I mean, you have a disproportionate amount of capital expenditure happening right now, especially in anything to do electrical. Right? I mean, it's got to do largely with renewable, etc. But with the renewable, you have the grid and all the other things which are happening, right? So when you have such disproportionate boom in the capex cycle, then it will throw up these disparities for a long time. Which is why I took the example of a transformer. I mean, and you can't produce a burger here and send to US, but you can produce a transformer here and sell, right? I just wanted to calibrate, is that real? Because I'm seeing that across cables, transformers, I mean, anything with an electron in it, honestly, I was just seeing a huge price disparity between, what we sell in local markets versus, and this is a strength of India, right? India is a fairly established electrical value chain. It may not be in all sectors, but electrical value chain has been kind of there for quite some time. I don't know, Susan, if you have a...
Yeah, lots of thoughts on this one. I think, just to reflect, there's no question that the IRA has definitely seen some project shift from Asia. We see that with our customers. Some projects that we thought were going to happen in Asia shift over to the US. I think the interesting piece of just the macroeconomics of what's happened recently is government involvement, like the IRA and like other things, and the security component has really reshaped the economic equation, though, in a big way, where pure economics would say free trade wins. Because of the different things that are going on in the world right now, however, partnerships between countries like US, India, are absolutely critical to win, I believe, in this renewable space in particular. And because of that supply chain security that's being driven everywhere, for every company's thinking about that, this actually is a really big opportunity. Do we see price differences? Absolutely. And there's always arbitrage opportunities as you think about it. But I think the real value of some of these different dimensions and how governments are doing this is the countries that are working around innovation and collaboration. Because at the end of the day, we always win in a market when it comes to a product that's differentiated. And so the ability to have the best innovative stuff commands the right value. And I think what's exciting that we're seeing in India is that ecosystem of innovation happen here at a different level. I think one of the panelists mentioned, which I really like the thought of, is, you know, in comparison to Europe, where the infrastructure is already built out, the opportunity to incorporate some of these advanced technologies, it's advanced thinking, bringing renewable energy generation to a traditional oil and gas site. You can do that now. That kind of innovation will happen here. The likelihood of that happening in other countries, especially in greenfield type operations, it won't happen as much. I think the last comment that I do want to make as well, just kind of the commentary around scalability. There's no question scalability helps big time from a cost perspective. But if we look a little bit longer term and we think about the scalability, what exists in China versus India, the demographic part of the equation is also truly important. China has taken a number of people out of their workforce for 2 years in a row. India has an incredible workforce that's coming up, that's young, that has an immense amount of potential. And so while today, short term, we see some of these challenges as we think about that, the potential long term, as I think about the demographic, in concert with the incredibly innovative, highly technical skills force that's coming out of India, I think that will overcome price deltas in a big way.
Can I step in over
here?
Yeah,
please.
I have something to add over here.
Yeah.
You see, to us, manufacturers as a business entity has to evolve on various pillars as part of this transition journey, actually. You know, we have these numbers, you know, we all know these numbers. Solar is going to increase by 2 to 5 times. EV is going to increase by 3 folds, 4 folds. Green hydrogen is going to increase by 5 to 27 times, whatever it is. But let's be honest, you know, manufacturers can't do it alone. They need a complete ecosystem with them to evolve. It starts from the consumer demanding eco-friendly needs, demanding eco-friendly products, and the sovereign government stepping in, providing the facilitation and the necessary enablers to, I would say, enable manufacturers to move and step into this direction. I think that's the complete scenario. And to be very honest with you, I think Indian industry, if you see, you know, it has evolved to a very large extent in last decade or so. It has really matured, and it is to us, you know, as a major stakeholders, you know, who have been working with this industry, hand-holding this industry, you know, which is, if I talk about the refinery segments, almost 90 to 95% is already indigenized in India. If I talk about the petrochemical segment, 70 to 75% has been indigenized in India. But now to take it to a next level forward for the new technologies which is coming up, it's also the R&D which will play a major role. And you know, we have all read that, you know, as part of the ecosystem to be provided, Government of India in this recent budget also have allocated almost 1 lakh crores of R&D funding, you know, to develop this ecosystem. So it's a whole gambit, you know, which has to move and evolve for this journey together.
Sir, point taken. I don't think anything can move without the government support on that one. I'm conscious of time. I have a couple of more questions, but if anybody in the audience wants to, we can take 1 or 2 from the audience if panelists are okay with it.
You're stopping them for lunch.
Yeah, you know, there are 2 exits at behind. So anybody wants to, can address the panelists and ask a question.
So they're all hungry.
We're all thinking about lunch.
Okay, all thinking about lunch. I'm going to just throw one in the air for anyone who wants to take it. So, you know, I personally feel the scope 2 or renewable electricity is kind of done and dusted. I mean, I don't think there is question on that. It's just a question of at what pace you will do it. All industrial manufacturers, etc., will go ahead with that. I think hydrogen will get there. If you kind of look at the, so what's next? If you look at the, if I take any typical manufacturing setup, what's the next thing out there that we need to solve for? I mean, if I think of one, for example, what do you do of heat, right? I mean, how do you solve for, you know, green heat kind of process, or anything which you think is the next frontier to kind of process?
I think, first of all, I think the RE story is still not completely baked. Till the point we are able to give 24/7 RE, or say 80%, 90% time, the story will have an issue for Indian grid to manage. So there, yes, we are doing PSP, Greenco is there, they are doing PSP. But beyond the point, I think battery is one area where the entire world will watch for. So that, I think, one will still need to go, because right now the cost and the technology both are becoming a constraint.
But I think already some steps have been taken by, as part of the ecosystem itself. We have the PLI scheme, you know, where this incentives are given for setting up the ACC batteries, and we already have the manufacturers who have lined up, and I think very soon you will hear manufacturing of that happening in India, to what I am privy with. So
At the right price.
yeah, price obviously.
Because
Price.
the grid, when it comes to the grid or consumer, the price are very simple.
No, I totally agree with you, but you know, let's be very honest, you know, because cost effectiveness is going to be a major pillar. You know, if I'm producing a thing which is not cost effective, nobody's going to buy it actually. So you know, so that's the first, I would say, the key milestone which every manufacturer has to cross.
Yeah.
And for that, you know, as we all know, we have discussed also, you know, gradually as the technology evolves, as the process evolves, till that has not evolved, the ecosystem, the sovereign help will provide you the roadmap for bringing the cost of the technology, for bringing the cost of the material, for bringing the cost of the manpower. But then ultimately at the end of the day, it has to be cost effective. So without cost effectiveness, and let me be very honest with you, the batteries which will be produced in India would be cost effective to the world scale.
Yeah, I think.
No, I'm sure you guys will solve it. What I meant is done and dusted means, you know, when you see trajectory, you know that you will get there. I was more saying what's not solved for.
Yeah.
And when I look, you take any manufacturer's emissions, right? You solve for the what is already electrified, you will solve through renewable. You will make it better by putting in storage, right? You have some of the energy efficiency measures to reduce the energy. I still see, for example, one piece left. If you are a glass manufacturer, for example, you have furnaces, which I'm assuming are not fired by electricity, are fired using some form of fossil fuel. I mean, I still don't know how do you solve for that. So I was like more future looking. Is there anything to watch out for? You know, people probably will have a good dreaming lunch on that rather than worrying about energy efficiency. You know, so
for a company like technology company like us, I think the biggest next thing which we're working very hard is the artificial intelligence, which is more technology in use.
okay.
So I don't think in the area we want to serve the customers in the room, I really need a new innovation.
Okay.
I already have enough and I have not used all, and including not us, including the user itself. So I don't think we need another technology innovation to crack the problem. I think the real problem is what we have. Are we really using it? The answer is no. Or using enough? The answer is no. But what we are already having, and if there is an evolution happening, it's more about the intelligence part. How can we make the data, which is the data, the storage, or the data mining, using artificial intelligence to make it more even impactful. So you can improve it, but for me there are two problems. First, what we have, Usiko, let's eat what we already have enough, and then while we're eating, can I make it a little smarter by using artificial intelligence?
Yeah.
I think the other thing that we really,
Yeah.
oh sorry.
Susan, you and then Gautam. Let me solve the order. No, you go ahead. I think you want to do.
Oh, okay. I think the other thing that would be really fantastic to see a lot more innovation. We see a little bit. It's just the overall concept of circularity. I think the batteries today. There's so many spent batteries. The extraction of those minerals is an incredibly intensive process in the refining to begin with. And how do we reuse that? Obviously there's some work happening in that space. And then so I think it's whether it's batteries, whether it's water usage in industrial processes, whether it's wood chips, I think that whole circular economy is super important for more innovation to happen. And one of the general rules of waste management is start off with less. Don't use it to begin with, so you don't even have to think about how to recycle. And so I think that is also a really important level of innovation. And we see players in the market on, for example, batteries, trying to get out of the use of these rare minerals and try to use solid state or other types of technology so that you're not having to think about those intensive resources that are in there. But that circular nature, to me, is really the next foray where we see a lot of pilots, but we don't see the scale yet happening to solve. So if you have all those EV, that's fantastic, but then you got all these batteries and you got to dispose of them and you're not really getting that value out of the material at the end of life. So how do we do that better?
Gautam will close with you. Yeah.
I think the last comment would be, there's a lot of work everyone's doing and we're talking of how to reduce costs. But there's another aspect I firmly believe in is how to get the consumer to pay more. I think that's the next challenge. I don't think it's impossible. All of us pay more for a better quality product, right? This is really for all the marketing, branding departments of companies, not just challenging the engineers and project managers constantly, right? I firmly believe that there's a consciousness developing, especially in OECD countries, and people are willing to pay more. And it's not significantly high. I understand that if Europe went all the way to green fertilizer, at the end consumer level, at the bread level, the cost of bread will only increase by 2.5%.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't even know in these inflation-ridden times, 2.5% for cost of bread, right? So I think that's a challenge for all businesses. It's, like Deepak said, we're paying for the future of this earth.
Yeah.
So that's not something that is not crazy. I think people will. So I think that's a business development, marketing challenge for all the companies.
Yeah. Good. So I'm going to do a shameless plug because you made that point. We did a study with World Economic Forum on all the value chains in the world, on what do the consumer needs to pay extra for the full value chain to be green. So we took a pair of jeans so it's $2 extra for the pair of jeans for the full food, for a car it came to about $2,000, $3,000 extra. So all the value chains, actually the premium required is fairly small to decarbonize the whole chain. But then it all comes and stacks up at the end to the consumer, right? So I'll close with that. Thanks for, it was not planned. So.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, but I think we can only take one. If the panelists are okay, I'm okay. We can be efficient with lunch.
Excuse me. Yeah. My question specifically to Mr. Rajeev Gupta and also to the panel. I mean, you have discussed about technology, about marketing of it, but what about manpower? How are you approaching, the training of manpower or adaptability of manpower for your new businesses?
I think that's what I touched also briefly in my say. Because one of the key aspects for moving into this journey is the skilled manpower. And that skilled manpower, as my colleague also has said, that they are working onto AIs and that's going to be the, further developments onto that. But again, all that needs, the manpower, the skilled manpower, which can take those steps forward. So that can come only, through training, through evolution, which the manufacturing companies, have to set up the basis for that and impart that training culture. And in fact I would take a step further. I said earlier also a cross-functional training also, because to optimize resources at the end of the day for any manufacturing processes, that also needs to be taken into consideration. So it has to be a continuous process of skilling, upskilling and development as far as we are concerned.
I can also add.
Sorry, just add 2 points there. Things are happening at, like from our side. In IIT Hyderabad, we set up we understood this gap. There's a big gap of skill sets needed. So we went ahead and set up a Green Co School of Sustainability with IIT Hyderabad, which is started courses for masters, and they're slowly going to go back and create a sustainable engineering curriculum from undergrad level, right? So, and another example, completely unrelated, a very entrepreneurial friend of mine, used to be in the travel business, used to innovate there, went and started 5 years ago, it's a company called TerraDo in west coast of US, creating skill sets for people to move into the energy transition sphere. So I'm just giving these examples because the world is getting alive to this requirement, and there are things being done. So I think this will, there's a big opportunity for entrepreneurs on that front as well now to create this, it's a different skill set that we'll need for that, yeah.
So very valid question. Today when we get hires, we believe, we see that the competency gap is huge. So what do is we do at multiple level. We have almost volunteered and working with around 500 schools in the country where we train the youth. And so far we have trained 200,000 people, which gets either hired in companies like us or equivalents, or they become entrepreneurs, right? That's something we do. Then we have also been working with universities to bring the education or the practical part of the education on the final year. I mean, we did that when we were, but I still go to colleges, we still have a stepper motors, and we are still sitting on technologies or labs which are 30 years old. So in this case, I'm not under NDA. We just did with Namtech in Baroda. So we're building a full, energy management labs where the final semester, you're actually working on technology which you can practice tomorrow. It's not a technology of 30 years ago, but there are schools in the country where we still teach something which is 30 years old. So that's another initiative we are working with colleges and schools to build. And third, with our own companies, when we got around 1,000 GTs last year in the company, then there's a 6-month learning curve, and we have a program called Gurukul, right? You go back to basics in the company while you are on the job. So I think that skilling is the challenge, and as more artificial and all technologies are coming, it's only becoming bigger and bigger. So very valid question, and I think it's a full responsibility of the ecosystem from the bottom to the higher to uplift it.
Okay, so I will close with that. Final comment, send more of your employees to places like these, one of the skilling opportunities you have to, right? Thanks to the panel. I think you've been wonderful and great insights from everyone. I think some of you are around, so if you want to catch up, but we'll have to close on the questions.
Thank you, Vishal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.